Okay, we are meeting today to have your pre-conference, and so we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to discuss your objective. We'll start there with the objective. So, what do you want your objective or your lesson to be focused on when I come?
So my objective is for my students to be able to write complete sentences, use capital letters at the beginning, spaces in between their words, as well as punctuation at the end of their sentences.
Okay.
Mhm.
Is there a particular reason why you chose this one?
So I've noticed that I've kind of been doing writing with my students, and I've noticed that when I started digging into writing, they needed to go back to hit sentence structure so that I can see some progressions in their writing. So I decided to hone in on their sentence structure so I can see their skill work begin to grow in their writing.
Okay,
So,
so we basically want to keep it focused on sentence structure.
correct.
Okay. So, how will you know if the students have met their objective?
So I will know that by making sure that well, before I know that they've done that, I'll make sure that I model and I use like sentence stems to help them with building that. We'll do an activity together. I'll make an anchor chart where I show them the framework of how a sentence will be structured.
Okay.
And once I have them working on a breakout activity, which is like a word scramble, I'll have them do that as a group. And while they're working on the word scramble, that'll be my way to easily go through and I can check, okay, this table they got it, this one don't have it. And then in order to individualize that even further, they'll have a worksheet that they'll work on after we do that group activity. And then I'll be able to pull them from there and I'll know that either they got it or they don't. And I'll pull them from small group after that. But they'll be able to do those things such as using capital letters, spaces in between their words, as well as punctuation would be correct.
Okay. So you're going to basically do your check for understanding through a practice
Correct.
and review type thing. Okay. So what instructional strategies will you use?
So some instructional strategies that I plan to use. I kind of said a little bit of them, which is sentence stems, which is teaching them that's me modeling how to build that sentence for them,
Okay.
as well as the word scramble. We'll do the word scramble as a group. And the anchor chart. The anchor chart will be a big way. That'll be their
Okay.
exemplar of how.
Hello, Carver Tigers. This is Mr. Miller. If you are joining us for the PBEIS meeting today, it is in my classroom, 224, all the way in the back. Thank you.
Okay. And I know this is your pre-conference. I'm just going to give you I'm gonna throw some details in. I would probably use, so for right here under your instructional strategies, I would probably use like a lead forward strategy, like a turn and talk to get more engagement out of them. Okay. So with that, how often are you differentiating for your learners?
So to do that, I'll provide sentence stems for my English language learners, so that way they can have support as well as my students who receive intervention support. Um, and yeah, so I plan to differentiate my sentence stems so
Okay.
that way each kid that are in those specific categories are able to have their specific differentiated sentence stem, but they'll know that by color.
Okay.
They'll be differentiated by color on the sentence stem. I got like red, yellow, green. And we've been working with differentiated sentence stems already. This will just
Okay.
be for this specific
They
content,
have the
but
background.
they'll know.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So are there any specific student behaviors or anything that you want me to know before I come in so it doesn't, appear to as an observer? I don't want to appear in this like, or I go over to the wrong child. So is there any kind of behaviors or anything that you want me to know before I observe?
Yes, I do have a student that is autistic, and so some of the times he likes to get out of his seat and he'll kind of roam and kind of like stem around the classroom a little bit.
Okay.
But he knows, like, he has parameters around the room where he knows that if he feels like he needs to get up and he needs to roam around, he has areas in the room that he can walk to and he can stand in those specific squares and he knows where those squares are. So you may see that, you may be wondering like, oh, where is he walking and where is he going?
Okay.
But that's his way to kind of move around the room. He's still engaged, he's still focused on the lesson, but he works better when he gets to move around and he has specific areas.
Okay, so he's not disturbing anybody, and students are used to it.
They're used to it,
Okay.
correct.
Do you have anything, let me say, like a student that might have a different type learning style? I know sometimes I might see students with clipboards, or some students just away to themselves.
Right.
Is there any learning styles you have like that you would like to make me aware of? Or
So I do have like 3 different students, and it's kind of more behavior more so than anything, and they're in desk. So when you come in, you'll see them in different desks spread out around the room. And one of them, I do have to differentiate with his learning styles a little bit. So he like the other kids may be working with paper and pen or paper and pencil, and he's probably going to have an iPad. I can reach him through his iPad. And he has a whiteboard on his iPad, and he just gets more engaged that way. And that's just what he prefers to use. So you may see him on his iPad, and everybody else may be engaged another kind of way. And he also, when we do that breakout activity, he doesn't do well working in groups. So I don't want you to think that I'm singling him out, but he does so much better when he works by himself. So he'll have his own individualized group activity. Yeah, and that's just how he does. He works. And sometimes I'll hop over to his group and I'll help him out, as well as hopping to all the other tables and making sure that everybody's engaged.
Okay. Is there anything you need from me, like to let me know, like feedback? Do you want any kind of feedback from me? Like, I know some teachers have said, the way I pace or the way I adjust or I try to monitor, I want a little bit of help with that. Would you say there's anything that you would like for me to give you feedback on, or for me to look at while I'm observing?
Yes, I feel like there's always room for growth. And so even when it comes to this sentence structure, there may be a way that I might be teaching it. And I really I look for the errors, and I try to look for the places where I think the students may have some misconceptions. And I try to fill in those gaps before I, in my planning process before teaching the lesson. But I still feel like, there's those chances where just the way I think, they may not get it. They may not be taught the right way, or there may be another way that I can explain it or give it that they're able to get it. So
overall, you're looking for growth.
Yes.
And you're okay for me to go into different type of areas if I see it fit.
Yes.
Just as long as you're growing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. There's more than one way to do things, and the way I may teach them the sentence structure, they may not get it. So
so we agree we're going to do it today. You got everything together?
Yes, they have their group activities. I've done my pre-planning where I made sure that, like I said, those misconceptions are a big deal. So I try to make sure that I think about everything that they may think about. I think about, what could go wrong, what could go right. So that way, while I'm teaching it, if I have to switch it up a little bit, I know how to do that. So I thought about all of that as well.
All right. Well, sounds good. I can't wait to come observe your class. Yes. And then we'll touch base at your post-conference.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we start, I just want to go over the action items that I gave you before we started. And so one was the see it, name it process of. So you did a good job reinforcing sentence structure during your whole group. Well, let me stop. How do you feel overall? How do you feel about the lesson?
I feel good. I got great results. The kids, because now that we're gonna dive more deeper into writing tomorrow, I feel like they're ready. They got the baseline, they got the sentence structure, and now we can actually get into the content of writing. So I feel very confident that they can move on to the next step.
Okay. Now, did students meet the objective?
Yes, the students were really engaged. They understood the concept, and they also responded really well to my model that I gave for the sentence structure, as well as my the assignments.
Okay. Okay. So, what do you think overall worked well?
I think what worked really well was the turn and talk. when I was doing the whole group activity and I had the students turn and talk with each other. They were like, "Oh no, the M is supposed to be capitalized because it's the beginning of a letter, and she forgot the finger space." So they were really engaged.
So they were engaged, and it was student engagement.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, what challenges did you notice?
Sorry, I kind of wrote some notes. I did some self-reflection. So, some of the challenges that I noticed that some of the students had might have been the punctuation, because we've talked about punctuation before, so I switched some of the sentences up, and some of them they had to determine if it was a question or if it had to be an exclamation mark, or if it was just a period. So that might have been a little bit of a challenge for them, because not only were they trying to focus on the structure of the sentence, they also had to comprehend what the sentence was talking about. So that way they were able to address that. And capitalization probably was another thing, is trying to remember how certain words also have to be capitalized if it's in the middle of a sentence, such as I. And
I noticed a lot of them were mom wanted to capitalize. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit because I wanted you to kind of get comfortable and feel like get it out how you felt about that. But I'm gonna celebrate you also and let you know for as the action items I gave you for as the seeing and the naming it process. I feel like you did a great job reinforcing center structure and doing it with a whole group. I feel you did good on that. And I loved how you used the scramble. I loved how you did the anchor charts. And I did notice some of your students that were kind of just off, but then when I checked on them, I did notice them doing their own, but they were still engaged in their way. And so I do have two work samples that I took. I don't know if you've seen me taking them from a student. I noticed that we'll say like with this one. What do you think about this one?
I could tell this student they definitely understood the objective, because even this sentence right here where it says "Will my gum pop?" He has his capital letter. He also has the correct punctuation because he put a question mark, and he also knew that one of his sight words "my." He knew that that "my" is not "mi," and I know that "my" is spelled "my," and he corrected that. And he also had his finger spaces. So, and then at the top, they even had to check themselves to make sure that they had their capital, their spacing, their punctuation, and their spelling. And he made sure that that was correct because he had all those bubbles filled in.
Okay.
So.
Then I went over to this student. What did we think about that?
Yeah, this student did not leave. This is one of my students that kind of struggles a little bit. And it seems as if he took the whole sentence and he repeated the whole sentence and just put it all together. So he's definitely one that I would have to pull for a small group and kind of intervene a little bit more with him.
So I'm gonna give you some action items for him real quick. So what I did was I did take him, and I don't know if you see me kind of go off to the side, and I was kind of talking to him. So right here, what do you think about this?
I like how you put the boxes around each one of the words to reinforce and to remind him that this is one word, and then after this word, before I can move on to that second box, I need to leave a space. And then when I move on to the next word, I need to leave another space. And I think that really helped him to split his words up. So I really like that. I think that's a strategy I'll continue to reinforce and use with him.
And I'm going to also say with this, I'm not going to say this case, but with particular students like this, give them chunks. Don't give him the whole, because he's still trying to process what words are in a sentence. So you might have to level back or align back down a little bit for him and do things like putting it in a box, and then when you call him up from small group, asking him about the I. Is it capitalized? Do you have space? Just start off in small chunks with him. Maybe give him 1 to 2 sentences, and then kind of gradually give him more once he start understanding, because I did definitely understand that this was more of a process and not understanding what a sentence is. Now with this particular kid, is there, we talk about I come in, I just observe, I don't know. Is this a child that you mentioned at the beginning? Does he get pulled out, or is it the reason why you would, because we often try to fill in gaps, but we don't do. I guess I'm asking, do you know the reason, or how can we? Where do you start with a student like this?
Right. Yes, he definitely is one of my students that gets pulled out for intervention and he is fed. So it does take a little extra reinforcements with
Okay.
him.
Okay.
Mhm.
So my action items for you, because it's him, it's a couple of more. Overall, your students grasp the concept.
Right.
And it's a review, but we know some things towards the end of the year or towards middle of the year we do kind of forget.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say give him chunks. I would say always put a box so he understands
Right.
this is a word. This
Mhm.
is a word. Because I know down in the early grade levels, they count how many words are in a sentence. And that might be good for him too.
Right.
Once you can move from taking the box off to now, you tell me how many words, point to the words, and then have him do that such thing. And you can also do like a scramble with him with the words to make sure that he is understanding the full structure of what a
Right.
sentence is.
Right.
Okay. So that's going to be when I come in the next time, that's going to be something else we look at. Now, do you think there are any more challenges that you notice?
I think their next biggest challenge would probably be spelling.
Okay.
A lot of them, like you said, were tripped up with that my. Like they just rewrote my as mi, and they didn't. Their mind just didn't automatically click. My is one of our sight words that we went over previously, and that's spelled wrong. So I feel like that's another thing that they probably need to work on a little bit more is their spelling.
Okay. Do you think there's anything different you would try differently the next time, or?
I think I probably would reinforce the spelling. I think I honed in a lot on just the framework of the sentence, like making sure that the beginning had a capital and they had finger spaces and they had the punctuation. But I think that I probably need to reinforce that when you're writing your sentence, also make sure that some of these words that are sight words or that you are familiar with, try to make sure that you're spelling them correct. And I feel like a lot of that comes with their memorization skills of remembering what those words are and how they're supposed to be spelled.
Okay. Do you feel like your pacing was fine? I know we talked about you just want to do it overall for growth. How do you feel about your pacing? I feel like you did pacing very well. I feel like you went in with your whole group, and I could see your structure. I could see the I do, we do, you do, and it was a gradual release. So I feel like you did well. Is there anything else that you feel like you would do, or steps you need, or how do you feel?
I think that it went well. I think because it was a refresher, it was kind of like I did a writing activity with them, and I was like, oh no, like I think I need to go do like a little refresher of how it's supposed to be. Then let's hit it back. So I think it was the perfect amount of time just to give them that little that they needed to get going with our writing next week. But some of those students who, like the one that we showed that may need a little more intervening, I would just hone in on those skills with him for small group. We'll still proceed with our writing next week, but with him, I'll just focus a little bit more on that sentence structure. And that's kind of how I do my differentiated centers as well. Like if I know that a couple of my students still need to work on the structure and a few of them are working on sentences or writing, I'll give them writing and I'll still keep him at sentence structure. So they're all doing writing in a way, but it's just differentiated based off their levels.
Okay. So you're going to hone in more on spelling. I will go ahead and say try to give a little bit more rigor also. Align up a little bit because now we're getting ready for next level. Go ahead and start with subject, predicate.
Right.
Go ahead and get them ready. So I feel like your pacing was fine. The students were engaged. You had hand-on activities. You're verbalizing them, understanding. You have good classroom management, by the way. You really do. If nothing else, I guess we'll just say work on the action items. And if you have any questions in between now and the next time, just let me know.
I definitely will. Like I said, I would love for you to come see our writing next week because I want you to see how much they grew from their sentence structure and how they're able to apply that for writing. So,
and I'm going to be looking for my buddy.
Yes, yeah.
All right. Thank you for your time.